Hello, Lana. How you doing?
Hi, Gui.
Thank you for being here today. I'm so happy to have this time to chat with you about your upcoming courses through the HUM.
Well,
Um,
I'm glad to be able to share the work that I'm doing.
Beautiful. Before we start, maybe I thought it would be a nice opportunity to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us about your background, the work you do.
So I'm Lana Jelenjev. I'm a Filipina that's now based in the Netherlands, and I would say I am a designer of spaces, focusing mostly on how might we design where healing, liberation, and belonging can be a core function of these spaces. And part of it is really with regards to my interest in kapwa, which is our shared humanity, and how our shared humanity can be seen and felt and validated and acknowledged in these spaces. And aside from that, I consider myself as a community alchemist. I love the intersection of convening people together, learning together, getting inspired to action together, and how might we design communities where we bring in our full selves and we bring in the strengths and the gifts that we inherently have. And with that, with creating these spaces, these communities, we also can create transformation or change in the world.
I love to hear you talk about the work you do. And I was wondering if you can share with us how did you get into this path? If there is a story or a moment, or if it was, more of a process that you can share with us.
Uh, I would say it has been like a long winding road, in a sense of growing up in the Philippines. I've always been interested in social civic work. So I've been a Girl Scout, done quite a lot of activities related to providing medical missions. At one point in my life, well, majority of my childhood up until university years, I've always thought of myself as being a doctor. And after spending a year after graduation as a play therapist in one of the best hospitals in the Philippines, and also one of the most, I would say, challenging, because it was a public hospital, I realized I didn't want to be a doctor because of so much of the pain and the suffering that I saw there. Yet healing has always been connected to myself, and to, I would say, to my life experiences as well, helping my mom heal, and eventually helping her in her last days. So healing has been a central core to my practice. I would say it started as partly as a teacher, as an educator, then training teachers. Went through a phase where I was a center director for street children, and eventually went abroad, worked as part of an international group training teachers in Jakarta and in Indonesia, and then moving here in the Netherlands, where my husband is based. And I would say finding my way after that, after being a big part of my life as my career, and then being here as a mom, I had to redefine who I am and redefine my measurement of success as well. And then that's when I got introduced more into consultancy work. There were some foundations that have asked for support, and I've offered my experience and expertise around curriculum design, creating training programs, and that's eventually how I started off of providing organizations with a deeper awareness on how they can create transformational programs, and have been servicing different organizations that are, I would say, very much on the ground when it comes to offering transformation and change to those that they're serving. And I somehow like that. I somehow see myself as that, pebble that helps with the ripple in the pond. And it's amazing how which is helping or supporting founders and also team leaders and HR, mostly with the learning and development teams, just supporting them in creating experiences, learning experiences that are connecting and that are healing and that are restorative, create so much more transformation in the programs that they're offering. So in short, it's that, it's a long winding process of losing myself, finding myself, redefining who I want to serve, and also in what ways can I bring in my gifts to those that I'm serving.
I love to hear the metaphor, the pebble. It's like, oh yeah, I can see that totally. And it sounds like there is a lot of searching and finding and back and forth, and we're going to be talking about change today. And but I also into intuitively think there is a lot of gratification in the work you do, and I would like to hear a few words about what is it, if there is something that you can share with us about what is it that you love the most, or what's the moment in within your work, or the experience within your work that it's more yeah, that you love the most, or it's more filling you with gratitude.
I would say contribution is a big part of my value. And when I work with mostly organizations who are doing great job, great work in the world, I find it as, oh, I'm providing, indirectly I'm helping who they're helping. This idea of a pebble, I've had that in as an image of myself ever since I was a teenager, and it has really stuck with me of like yeah, just this idea that, if you throw a pebble on the pond and the ripples that it creates, I just saw myself as that pebble. And I work mostly with organizations who are doing good, either they're into social learning or mindfulness or training programs. And one of the things that, if I recall, like about 5 years ago, I've worked in this project where I had to create a social and financial literacy module for a foundation, um, well, manual. Yeah. And it was so fascinating when they gave like an impact report, and shared that the manual itself and the training that happened because of the manual was delivered to 1 million students worldwide. And I was just like, wow, the breadth of that impact, even though I wasn't the one training, or just the mere fact that I was able to contribute to that manual, was for me, was like, this is what makes it worthwhile for me. That there is a contribution to the next generations. There is a contribution to how things are shifting now, and there's a direct contribution to how organizations are also looking at how they can um, provide transformation for those that they're serving.
It's so easy to get in our daily lives to get caught into what's not working, and just to hear you telling this, it's like, oh yes, there's so much there are so many people working for the good and doing, being little pebbles that expand their contribution to the world, that it brings my hopes up. And that's a beautiful reminder that it makes sense, the work we're doing and so many others are doing, and I'm thankful for that.
And this is
I
why,
Yeah.
This is why I love the topic around change.
Mm.
That with the courses that I would be offering through the hum, which is around understanding change and designing for change. The main premise why I love change is that it's one of the constant things in our lives. Like change happens, either personal or professional or organizational, or we can even look at it from ecosystems, um how ecosystems are changing. Also, one of the realize is that how we look at change also looks at, like the different stages or phases in our lives. And if you ask me, and of like if you ask me probably 20 years ago when I was in my 20s, what is success, it will be very much different from what I would be saying now, you know. So that's how change happens. And when you mentioned about, you know, contributing to others, I also realized that just the mere fact that one person can say after a workshop or after spending time with me and say, oh, you know, there's certain things that I am doing things differently. I'm not just changing one person, I'm changing lifelines. I'm changing generations. And this is the part of change that we often, you know, neglect to see, that there's a depth to change that happens just, you know, and maybe not using the word just, but that happens when even just one person is, you know, shifted or transformed. Just that one person can create lifelines of change. So for me, this is why change is so crucial to understand, and to also, you know, to embrace and to know more of what are this, you know, how do we look at change and what happens through change, and perhaps, you know, how, you know, in the bigger program, how might we design for change?
Let's talk about those two programs and what what are they called? What's the difference between them? It's two different levels, and yeah, tell me a little bit more about that.
In the first program, in the 2 hours that we'll be together, we'll be diving into the Satir change model, which is a model of change that I often share. And I've been sharing this for the past 5 years now, with different organizations, with different entrepreneurs, with the clients that I've worked with. And it has been transformational in the way that they embrace change, and the different stages or phases that they go through as we navigate change. So this 2 hours is basically going through, you know, going through the framework, and at the same time plotting it in, mapping it out in the way that your organization is going through change, or even personally, you know, how you can see this mirror the transformation that you've gone through or are going through in life. The second one is a bit of a, you know, deeper dive into that of how might we design for change. So knowing how these different phases of change happens, what is needed, what how can we bring our strengths in the different phases, how can we amplify, you know, the strengths, and also to look at what are needed in terms of navigating through these different phases. So in designing for change, we really look at, you know, what are the different levers that we can use so that we can navigate these different phases of change with a bit more ease and awareness, and also support. Knowing also that as we go through different phases, getting that support is very valuable, so that we would be able to yeah, we would be able to embrace the change, and also go through these stages with a bit more calmness and ease. So this part is really more hands on in terms of how can we see this, you know, how can we plot it, how can we map it, and at the same time, what can we do in designing, you know, for programs or services or products that really matches where people are at in their stages of development, or in the stages of change that they're part of, that they're currently undergoing. So it's it's really a different shift, and I would say a big part of the shift um is an expression of the platinum rule. I don't know if you've heard of, or familiar of the platinum rule.
I would love to hear more.
So you know, we're so steeped with the what's this, do unto others what you would want to be done unto you. So the platinum rule is do unto others what they would want to be done for them. And this is really looking at who are we serving in the first place, and where are they in the different stages of their journey, and transformation journey, and how might we really better serve them. So it's not taking in only our lens, but also the really taking in the lens of who we're serving. So I'm hoping that organizations who would really like to understand, the people that they're in service of, those who are founders, leaders, managers, program designers, those who are creating teaching and learning programs, these are better suited for you to be able to know in what ways can those programs or services or products that you're designing for really fits in with where people are at in their journey of transformation.
Beautiful. You describe it so well because I was gonna ask you who is this for, and you just name it.
Yeah, and in this designing for change, it's actually beneficial if they're, like, say for example, doing it with their team, so that they can work together directly on the project.
Well, the last question I have was why is this learning about change important for organizations and teams, which I think you covered already, but if there is something else you want to say about that.
I would say if there's anything that probably COVID has steered in us, is that the separation between personal and professional has really blurred the lines. That what we actually bring in the professional life are our personal, values, characteristics, ways of seeing things. So it has not been that, like, distinct after all. And when I use the satire change model within organizations, I often get responses like, "Oh, I totally get it. I totally see it and totally can identify with it." And this is why the use of models such as the satire change model for me helps us to have not just an awareness or a better understanding, but also an appreciation of it. It flows in the same way that it goes within the personal, that the personal, the interpersonal, the institutional, the systemic are all part of the same, I would say, processes that we go through. And change being one of that is I would say something that we cannot avoid. There would always be change within interpersonal relationships. There would always be change within organizations. There would always be change within systems. So how are we creating ways in which we can understand change better? And maybe as we get to understand change better and have a different relationship to change, we might be better adaptive to change, and we might also be having that relationship to change where we embrace change rather than see it as something to shy away from or not do. Exactly, this positioning of, oh, I don't want to get into change. But how can we first have an awareness and understanding to change, and then be able to design for change in a way that really meets us and those that we're serving.
Now I can see a different perspective of like, oh, I thought I was doing this for my organization and I'm actually doing it for myself. Or, like if I'm taking the course and I'm like, oh, I'm taking this to my family and to my um, personal inner growth, which is just what you said. It's not separate, but I can see the benefit of that. I don't know if there is anything else that you want to share that we didn't cover through the questions, and maybe it's just inviting people to it, or anything else that you want to tell us today.
Well, first, thank you for having this conversation with me around a topic that is very much exciting for me. And I do hope to see people, founders, especially people who are very close to power and who are very close to decision making, people who um, have the ability to really steer change within the systems, the organizations that they're part of. I do hope to see you there.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to have this chat and learn more about what you do. And even though I've met you already, there's always something new to the work you do, your story, and how you bring light into the world. So thanks for doing this.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.